Welcome to the Usually Dream of the Gridiron Podcast. We are joined today by returning guests to the show, as well as 2023 indoor football champion with Omaha Beef, Jordan Barton. Jordan, how you doing today, bro?
Doing good. It's always nice to be on your show. I enjoy it. So I appreciate you having me on.
100%. So first and foremost, congratulations on the season. Congratulations on winning the championship with Omaha Beef. Obviously a great indoor team. Some NFL coaches such as Matt LaFleur and others have actually played for the Omaha Beef. So talk to me about what was the process for you kind of getting recruited for the Omaha Beef and kind of the season as it materialized?
Yeah, so prior to playing with the Beef, I was with the Wyoming Mustangs the year before.
Right.
Gabriel Martinez actually accepted a coaching position with the Beef along with Coach Pimmel, who I had relationships with previously, excuse me. And they, asked if I wanted to go out there. I said, why not? And, I went out there. I enjoyed it. There's actually a coaching change prior to the season. So Coach Martinez and Pimmel weren't there, who originally recruited me. But I decided to stay, weather the storm, and I came out with a championship. So I'm not too upset about the outcome.
100%. Definitely can't be, right? So
Yeah.
talk to me about kind of when the season started and kind of, how you, I guess, the depth chart and you working your way into a starting role.
Yeah, so whenever Pimmel originally recruited me, he recruited me with the intention of me being the guy. So that was one thing that really wanted me to made me want to go out to Omaha. I got out to Omaha, starting through camp, started the preseason game, had a touchdown and 4 catches, I think. And then coming out of the preseason game, I ended up breaking 2 fingers in my hand. So I was out 2 weeks. They rested me for that third one, and then I came back the fourth. So we played 12 games. I played 7, started 6. So it wasn't the year that I wanted it to be as far as personal performance, just because the injury kind of set me back a little bit. But going into 2024, making sure I'm going to stay healthy, keeping all the same training principles that I had the prior season, just trying to look in, going to camp strong, and do what I can to get my spot back.
100%. No, that adversity tends to mold us and build us. I don't know if you can see that, but that was the surgery scar right there when they had to
Yeah,
insert
that was
rods.
pretty
And
serious.
yeah, it's never fun, especially when you're trying to catch.
Yeah, it can definitely put a damper on what you're trying to do in that aspect.
100%. So talk to me. So you obviously said the six to seven games you started, and 60 obviously couldn't play. What were some of the best games you had in the opportunities you were presented this year?
So I would say the 2 best games I had were against Sioux City and Topeka. Topeka, I had 3 catches for 50 yards and 2 TDs. And then Sioux City, I had 3 catches. I'm not sure of the yards, but I had a TD, and we were actually playing against Justin Gilbert, former Oklahoma State. He was a number 8 pick in the 2014 draft. So it was cool to go up and compete against, what was the best at one point in time, and just kind of hone my skills in that aspect. So plus that rivalry, the Sioux City rivalry between them and Omaha is pretty storied. So it's always a good time.
100%. Yeah, I know the Sioux, and one of the things, listeners who may not know this, but in the Midwest and especially that region, right, there still is a huge presence of arena football. And I think kind of to your point about the rivalries, right? These predate, I want to say decades, back to, when the Arena League originally formed over 3 to 4 decades ago. And I think kind of to, kind of what you said about, kind of the talent, right? You kind of see that saturation and that kind of that dissipation of, of NFL players. I remember, the Chicago Falcons when I played, we had to go play the Western Michigan Ironman. They had some guys, also played in the league too from USC and what have you. So, it's really interesting to see kind of how, that it's like a melting pot, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, and then now the market, I don't know if you've seen what happened recently with the USFL and the XFL, but they had that merger.
Yep.
So, 8 teams are no longer going to be performing on Sunday. So that's jobs that are lost, and, more talent that's going to come and play in, the arena leagues, overseas and stuff like that, so they can continue to market themselves. But yeah, I mean, it's a very intertwined sport, and you see people that you played with a long time ago, people you've heard about. I played Division II football. My high school grades weren't exactly the best. I wasn't the most disciplined student at the time. I was only concerned about football, so I was only a D2 qualifier, but I played D2 sports. And I'm in camp, or people on my team. My boy Trey was a receiver with me on the Beef last year. He went to Louisville and Memphis, played with Lamar Jackson, Tommy Armstrong, set Big Ten records, excuse me, with the Nebraska Huskers. There's talent across the board in all these leagues, and the difference between them is very small. Just one situation or one circumstance that puts one guy in a better situation than the other, and that's all it takes, and just maximizing your opportunity.
What you just said right there was massive because, like you said, it can be one situation, one play, or like that changes the course of a career, right? And yeah, that's kind of why I was asking the questions about when you got the opportunity, when you started, when you actually got like you said your reps, and before the injury, and now like you said coming back into next season, you kind of have a mindset. I mean, would you say, obviously, because it was a successful season winning the championship for the Omaha Beef, but I mean, outside of the injury, what else do you think kind of, has been kind of, I want to say, like a motivator for you?
Over the course of my career,
Over the course of your career or recently, kind of, heading into this next season?
uh, well, I'd say that I'm always my biggest motivator. It's not as much trying to prove others wrong, but prove myself right in a
Hmm.
sense.
Hmm.
Every year I go in with a certain goal or achievement that I would like to obtain that year. Every year it's a championship. The individual ones may vary from year to year, but the team goal is always a championship, and you want to do whatever you can to again prove yourself right and prove that you belong on a consistent basis. And that's what is different between high school, college, and the professional ranks to me, is just the consistency. You got to go out there and prove your worth every day, because there's always a younger cat on the block trying to come and take your spot. So if you don't perform, it's a high turnover job. You're only as good as what you've done recently. So you always got to keep that in mind.
Young man's game, as they all said.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm only 28. I'm not even that old, but I'm
Well,
a
I mean, you're
veteran.
young. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'm 33, so I mean, kind of like not old, but it's like if in football years, that's like 70. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's why I hung it up at 29. But to your point, and I think kind of what we just said, like like being your own motivating factor. What outside of kind of the ultimate outcome, the objective of kind of the Omaha Beef, are you seeing any kind of other avenues? Like, I mean, and we're going to talk about this in a bit because you mentioned this on last time you're here. But kind of, do you see this opening has it already opened any other doors for you off the gridiron?
Yeah. So in 2020, I opened my own training business, Just Believe Athletics. Started off very small, had a couple of clients, and then purely through word of mouth and things of that nature, I've kind of grown, to 20 clients or so, rather consistently. And it's given me opportunities to train with people such as Quincy Carter. He was a Dallas Cowboys quarterback. Me and him are pretty good friends, actually. He got me an opportunity to play with the Frisco Fighters whenever my San Antonio Valor team had some turmoil happen. And then I've also held a camp with him. So I have another camp I'm hosting February 17th and 18th with a couple of my old teammates, some of the old connections I've made throughout my playing career out in Canyon Lake in Central Texas. It should be a good time. Just really nice to give back some of the knowledge I've gained to the next generation and make sure that they're prepared, whether it be taking that first step as a freshman in a high school or the first step as a freshman onto the college gridiron.
100%. No, that's great. So I mean, thanks for sharing that. But also one more thing you talked about last time you were here, which I was basically kind of alluding to, the non fungible token needs bees, right? Is that
Needs bees.
yeah, needs to be. So talk to me about that. Kind of since you last joined and kind of what development has happened since then.
Okay, so since we last talked, Needs Bees has kind of hit a little bit of a stalemate. The contract, the person that I had handling the contracts, wasn't able to get it done in a fashion that I wanted it to.
Mm.
So I had to go in a different direction. We are still in motion. It's just taking a little bit longer than was expected. I would expect by, mid-year next year, everything's going to be up going 100%. And I'm looking forward to that as well because that has been in the works for quite a while. But as you know, sometimes with business things take some hiccups and it takes just a little bit of a longer journey to get there. So that's kind of what we're going through right now.
Slow and steady wins the race, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
about the tortoise and not the hare, right?
always, always. And kind of what you just talked about, like you said, giving lessons to the other kids and kind of your camps that you're hosting with Just Believe Athletics. I've seen how involved you are, and it's really incredible stuff you're doing. So I'm sure people would commend you for that. How has that kind of been like a funnel? Because you mentioned the college gridiron and also kind of high, and so kind of when I was coaching high school varsity right before the pandemic hit, and the pandemic hit, and then that kind of ended. There is obviously that kind of like pipeline, you know what I mean, where you have that commingling of the college and the high school. It's the kids who just want to be good enough to high school. So are you working with all levels, or is it kind of just like a targeted group of like kids trying to get better, so that way they can get some college tape?
I work with all levels. I
Yeah.
try and get the best out of each kid and help him achieve the personal goals that he has. So, obviously I have guys who want to play Division I football, and then, I got guys who just want to start on a varsity team. With the ones that do want to play at the next level, I try and provide them opportunities that I may not have necessarily had back in my day. For example, I got five of my guys on a game day recruiting trip to Rice. The coach was actually a player, trainer, manager back whenever I was at Kingsville. And, we used to cut it up on the sidelines or whatever between drills. And, I just utilized that connection and got them, seen and got the film seen and stuff like that. So, I try and give as much as I can, and just try and help each individual kid achieve whatever personal dream he has. Because I feel like any dream is possible. It's not about talent. It's just about the amount of hard work you're going to put in. I was listening to a podcast with Gilbert Arenas the other day, and he was talking about greatness. And he said, what does it take to be great? And there's no set definition of what it means to be great. And he said that he had a certain perspective and things that he was doing, and he thought he was being great. And then he hears, stories of Kobe Bryant, going to the gym at 4 a.m. in the morning, shooting 150 shots at each, spot in the gym. And he's like, no fucking way, So he shows up to the gym at 4 a.m. in the morning, and he's seeing Kobe Bryant hitting full game reps, shooting, 150 shots at each location. So he writes it down. Then he hears something similar about Ray Allen. So, everyone's on their individual journey to greatness. To me, it's more so not about what you're doing, as long as you're doing good work to move towards the goal, but it's the amount of hours that you put in. Are you dedicated to your craft enough that you're going to, sacrifice some other luxuries so that you go in and you work on the fundamentals of your game? Because that's what's going to separate, a player long term. I mean, listen, I'll tell you right now, I am by far not the most athletic football player that I have ever seen. There are people on my Nassau Community College football team that should have been playing as long as I have, had the opportunities I had. But again, it goes back to those little situations, those decisions that could hinder a career or put it in a different path. And, whether it be grades or whether it be, baby mama issues or whatever it may be, they could no longer continue to play. And, everyone's path is different, but just put in the hours, make sure you're with like-minded people who are trying to achieve the same goal as you. And, anything's possible. So that's what I'd be preaching to my kids.
Two things on what you just said, because you hit on some pretty massive points. Kind of the Gilbert Arenas, the Kobe Bryant document, and kind of that quote, and also kind of what he said, and how so many other players echoed, kind of the observed behaviors of Kobe. I I remember I was watching the Redeem Team documentary a few months ago on Netflix, right?
Yep, good
And then
one.
everyone, Carlos Boozer, all these guys are all like, "Yeah, we're all in the lobby," and then we all see Kobe, like, and then like he has his gear. It's a 5 a.m. And then they're like, "Bro, where the fuck you going? Like, where you going?" And then he's like, "I'm gonna go to the gym." And then everyone's like, no, man, we got to sleep. And then he's like, okay, fine, I'll go by myself. And then that kind of instilled like, a practice or like, I want to say a shared behavior. And like kind of what you said about, the company you keep, right? Good behaviors breeds, good practices. And that obviously breeds, better outcomes. And I think kind of, with what we saw with Kobe and how he was able to instill that culture with everyone, it helped them kind of, obviously what they did, redeem themselves and win the gold medal. And now they've just won every single year since then, right? And then one more thing, I think, if I watched David Beckham's documentary on Netflix, which just came out, I think it was a few weeks ago, and he was talking about the same process of when he was little, and his dad would just basically tell him left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, and like it was such a grind from the get go, but he had to keep that intensity as he progressed through, graduated through all the different levels of competition that he competed at, through life, right? And I think kind of with those lessons that he learned, he was able to take that and obviously build, a 500 and $500 million career. Now he's a businessman, right? And I think kind of like you said, what you breed and kind of what those practices are that you do and the people you surround yourself with at this point, while you're still kind of early on, that helps kind of, set the foundation for later on when you want to venture out at some point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And since you touched on Kobe, uh, everybody would always say that, Kobe was a baller, but he may have been a little bit selfish. And, I listened to an interview Kobe gave one time, and he talked about why he was that way. And after listening to that, I 100% agree with him. He says, I know how many hours I've put in the gym, how many shots I've taken to prepare for this moment. I've seen you, sleep in through practice, or, not be attentive in film or whatever it may be. I trust myself to take that shot. I don't necessarily trust you. And I mean, once he put it like that, I'm not even mad at him, because the work ethic, he's not, bullshitting. So
100%. That's actually why
yeah.
I went. That's actually why I went to Kobe night. Back when we went after the helicopter crash, because I was like, oh my god, like because you have to, like you said, just respect that work ethic, and it's just ridiculous the amount of, like you said, time and effort and concentration, and kind of like you said for your own journey. I think that's kind of it's interesting because you touched upon talent. Like for me, I wasn't naturally gifted or athletic as well. I mean, I ended up playing till I was right before I turned 30, and then that was it, right? I mean, basically my knees gave out, but like you said, right? I mean, there were guys who were way more talented on my JUCO, and I mean, even for me, like in high school, like those habits weren't there yet. But once you kind of instilled them, when I got into college and started, taking that stuff seriously, that's when you started seeing the results. And that's why my coach, who's now in the NFL, Coach Keith Williams on the Ravens, right? He was able to he was able to bring these NFL wide receivers like James Jones from the Packers. He works with Tyreek Hill, bring them in and bring that cohesive kind of, I want to say just like this again, melting pot, because then everyone could see that example. Because when you see James Jones in your spring ball
Yeah.
running routes and doing everything, then what is your excuse? You know what I mean? Like you get like, oh, coach, like I'm not doing it, like I'm too tired. Oh, like that's an NFL wide receiver. You know what I mean? Like hitting the practice field. So I think that all that applies to everyone.
Yeah, no, iron sharpens iron. So anytime you get to go out there and compete with or against, some of the best, it's always kind of a motivator for you in a sense, and you want to put your best foot forward.
100%.
Yeah.
So we have about 10-15 minutes, but so kind of talk to me about kind of what your resolutions are for the new year and kind of anything else.
I don't really be getting into the holidays too much. I try and just make sure I maintain consistency as much as I can, like I spoke about before. Just again, some of my goals going into camp, still trying to develop a little bit of my speed. Still want to put on about 5 pounds. Just daily, consistently working on my hands, the usual things. Uh, I will say one thing I do want to touch on with you before we hop on here, though, is the just landscape of college football right now with NIL, the transfer portal. I have my own views and opinions, and I kind of want to see what yours are and hash them out a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, the way I look at it, I've been a Coach Prime fan my whole life because I'm an Irish fan and I watched Prime as a kid. And, I love kind of what he was able to do with Colorado. And I love the fact that athletes are able to get paid. That's just my personal take because I think NIL is a good thing. I think when RG3 addressed it, he kind of said it, it's great for kids because now you have an option for, these guys who are basically bringing millions of dollars to a university who otherwise couldn't see access to that. I mean, you watched the Fab Five documentary and Jalen Rose talked about it like 12 years ago. He said, "Here we are, and you see all these merchandise with our faces on it, but we have to ask for, for dollars so that way we can get, a snack from the vending machine." And I mean, you have these kids who are not from the best socioeconomic backgrounds, yet they're being used. And I think, I mean, we can talk about so many other examples. Like Kaepernick talked about the NFL draft, and I mean, it's they're using this, this athlete, as a means to kind of, fuel more revenue, but athletes aren't able to get a share of that, right? So it's the business model doesn't work. So what the fuck is the NCAA doing? you know, I mean, if someone wants to transfer, if someone wants to, I'm glad they got rid of the 1 year eligibility rule because if someone is good, like Lofa Tupu, all pro linebacker for the Seattle Seahawks, he had to transfer from Maine to the USC because he wanted to get more reps. He wanted to be at a bigger place. So he had to sit out that 1 year redshirt. And then, but he said, had I played for 5 years, he probably would have even gone higher in the draft. He would have been a top 10 pick, and that's millions of dollars. So I look at it from the athlete perspective. I side with the athlete. NIL is great. Transfer portal is great. You got a problem with it? Recruit harder.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, let me air out mine, and then you tell me what you think. So I 100% agree that athletes need to be paid. I think it needs to be, really from the D2 level up, or really any level that is profiting from the football program. They should be making some type of stipend or whatever you want to call it. My problem with it now is it's a little bit like the Wild Wild West. I feel like sometimes too much freedom is a bad thing, and with the transfer portal, there's 4,000 kids in the transfer portal right now. And we always want to talk about the good stories whenever you got the former 3-star recruits, the guys who went and played at Georgia Tech or UT Martin or something like that, and then they get picked up almost immediately in the portal. But what about those guys? And I'm speaking from experience because whenever I was at Kingsville, I had to have that awkward conversation like, "Hey, coach, like this ain't for me. I'm trying to leave." And for me at the time, there was that eligibility rule. So if I wanted to go to another division, whether D2 or D1, I had to sit out a year, and that would mess up my eligibility. So the only option was JUCO. So again, I do agree that the transfer portal is good, but here are my two conditions with it. So number one, I feel like NIL, fantastic. Places like Texas Tech are giving players like $20,000 a year just to be a scholarship player on the team. Fantastic. But my problem is it's basically like a free agency now. Okay. Yeah. There was no loyalty to the school. Because I'd be telling my guys this. I don't agree with it, but this is what I tell my guys. If you have an opportunity to go and play your freshman year, doesn't matter what level it is, and you get film and you dominate at that level, and you go and market yourself to other teams in the portal, you shoot up. Now you're going from playing just for a scholarship at a D2 to go into a 1AA, and now you're making 10 grand a year. You know what I'm saying? And then you go there for your sophomore year, and then you ball out again, and now you go back to the portal and market yourself. It's basically like NFL free agency. I don't agree with it, but I want my kids to work the system, not have the system work them. Now, what I would like is to have that NIL money be put in some type of trust fund. Okay, so whenever a kid gives 2 years, they at least obtain their associate's degree, they can withdraw that money from that fund and use it to their own, free will. Doesn't matter what. They then can enter the transfer portal after that 2 years. So that's one school plus the transfer portal. That's your second school. After you attend 2 years there, you get more trust fund money after you graduate. If you graduate in 4 years, then you get to transfer again as a graduate student to whatever program. I feel like there has to be some type of regulation because, to be honest, I was young, dumb, and 18 at one point in time, and I was not ready to make those type of decisions. I think that, there needs to be some type of guidance, some type of boundaries, because, again, I saw the other day that Marvin Harrison Jr. was talking about, or there was talk of him not declaring for the NFL draft because NIL money he might receive would be 20, $30 million. Well, not only is he now making more money potentially than a first round draft pick in the league. So where's the incentive to work hard, push hard, and want to get to the next level? He's also making vastly more money than a lot of these college football coaches. So I'm not saying with Marvin Harrison in particular, because I'm sure he's a good kid. But there are some kids out there that don't have the best reputation off the field, but they're going to get paid. And now they're just going to be an asshole because they got asshole money, and they're not going to keep on working for it. So I'm 50-50 on it. I mean, I believe that they deserve to get paid. I believe they deserve to have access to the portal without, messing up their eligibility. But I mean, we got to put a limit on it somewhere.
100%. No, I'm with you. I think kind of with the, like you said, the lack of regulation and these kind of kinks that they're working through, I think that's kind of where, we're still kind of seeing it's going to take time, I think, because it's not going to, right now, this still kind of the early stages has been in effect for 2 seasons, I think. So I think after maybe like another, like to your point, if they're able to kind of, regulate, like you said, kind of, keep, like you said, the fund, I think the trust fund, I'm really with you on that because then that's incentive, right? So, or if something, like you said, kind of like insurance, if something doesn't happen or something doesn't work out for whatever reason, right? Then you have that, to basically lean back on for the work you did put in. And, like you said, you get your associate's degree, you have the option to continue or you can stop. And I think kind of, to your point about the kind of the marquee players, right? Like a Marvin Harrison Jr., or what have you, right? It can be anyone. I think ultimately, we have to figure out kind of ways to make sure. I think kind of the fine line is kind of, dude, the problem with me, the reason why is, I mean, fuck the NCAA. I mean?
Most
Fuck them
corrupt
and
organization in all the world, honestly, outside the
yeah,
U.S. government.
100%. Well, I mean, yeah, pretty much, yeah. And so, I mean, ultimately, like that's all these organizing bodies, right? They're basically like responsible for kind of how much money they get in. You look at the UFC, for example, right? Dana White has the same exact system where players are getting paid pennies on the dollar. So the NIL came into play, and now it's basically you're giving that power back. But I agree with you that there should be some kind of level of of balancing out how much that kid is going to get, but also how much money are they bringing in? Bring some transparency to that. That's what I want. I want some transparency, how much money they're bringing into the school. And I want to see how much they can divvy that up. Yeah, the top player can get maybe like the I mean the highest share, but then like you said, divvy it up against so everyone gets a piece of the pie if the team is doing well and they're bringing in money for the school because I think that would be the best way to make sure that you still incentivize these players to want to work hard to go to the next level because it won't be like you said first rounder or NFL money, but then you also have the option of having something to fall back on if for whatever reason the NFL doesn't work out because there's only a 2% success rate in the NFL.
And on that note, I definitely think that there needs to be some type of unifying body
Right.
that gets classes specifically for athletes that teach them about taxes, that teach them about entrepreneurship, that allow them a different avenue once their playing career is over. Because, I mean, whenever you were playing, I'm sure, and whenever I was playing, it was like, okay, you got class, but then a coach would be like, hey, skip class to come watch film, and like, that's cool. You want to say I'm a student athlete, but my whole career, I felt like an athlete student. So, I got my degree in political science and history. I've never really used it. I train individuals and I use my football degree that I've maintained instead of my academic degree. So I just feel like there has to be some type of better platform for athletes to get into these, Fortune 500 companies and things like that if they're not marquee players and their name isn't known. Because we didn't have the opportunity to go and do internships in college like a lot of the other kids who didn't have to do athletics got to. So we didn't get that initial step in the door. And, it was really just free for all once you graduated. So definitely feel like the NCAA or whatever body can set student athletes up for success more than they are right now.
100%. So, I mean, I think for now, like you said, not perfect, but it's good to have it. I think it goes on that. And like you said, step by step, these tweaks and iterations to the process should hopefully make it so, like we said, a more kind of, balanced kind of system so everyone profits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. You got 5 minutes. Closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts. Make sure y'all check out Omaha Beef football this year. Watch your boy number 81.
81 forever.
Make sure y'all keep tuning in to my boy's podcast. He's always got good stuff on there. And, at the end of the day, consistency is key. Be your best self.
Consistency is key. Everyone, Jordan Barton, number 81 from Omaha Beef, Just Believe Athletics, correct?
Yes,
Just Believe
sir.
Athletics at Instagram, and you can follow him at JB, I believe, Mr. JB13 on
Yes, sir.
IG. Any other socials or kind of links you want to drop?
My Twitter is like JB8107 or something like that, but that's it.
That's it. All righty. Everyone, Jordan Barton, thank you all for tuning in, and tune into Omaha Beef next year because you know I will.